Okay, I'm going to give you some advice on how to prepare for an assessment question, which deals with the first part of the advanced higher paper. So this is what we call the map interpretation questions. And the first thing you have to know is that you're going to get a large Ordnance Survey map, and you'll also be given a overlay of tracing paper, which will need to be placed on the map and drawn onto when you are locating or adding some information about a chosen location for something, generally speaking, something you're going to construct or that will be built. It's not always the case, but there will always be tracing paper and you'll always be asked to add something to it. Now, if we have a little look at what these questions look like, and I'll give you some general advice on the types of question. You're given the map and the tracing paper. You also, by the way, get an atlas, and I'll talk more about the atlas in a second. And the first question is where you have to draw something often to a scale that you're given, onto the map in a suitable location. Now, a mark will be awarded for drawing the site accurately, and then the other mark or two, depending on how many marks are available for this question, will be awarded for a suitable location having been identified. Okay, and that's quite a straightforward skill, but you've got to pay attention to whether this is to be drawn to scale. Is this to be a square, a rectangle, or does it not need to be? It does actually say here, for example, in this question, it does not have to have straight edges, but the area of land that is encompassed by a site of a 100 to 150 would have to match that of whatever it is you're being asked to select. So have a little look at the scale of your map and check that the scale that you choose in the area that you identify is appropriate. And you will have practiced the skill in class. Okay, on to the serious questions, and what questions are worth quite a lot of marks. This is always follows this question, and depending on the scale of this question could be worth 6, 7, 8, even all the way up to 10. It depends on the nature of the question. This is a 7-mark question, and it's about explaining why you've chosen your site. Now, as with all map-based questions, your answer must be strongly related to evidence from the Ordnance Survey map, not just identifying evidence using 6-figure grid references and other material, but also other key things like names of possible roads, motorways, A roads, or any other evidence that you can see, not necessarily right at the actual location you've selected, but within the vicinity that might be appropriate for having selected your site. And it doesn't have to be human factors. It could also be natural factors to do the gradient, the drainage, and other factors that will have influenced your decision. You want to spend a lot of time on this because there's an awful lot of marks awarded for this particular skill. At this stage, though, you might also start using atlas evidence. It's worthwhile finding where your area sits within an Ordnance Survey map of the United Kingdom and what is in the area that surrounds your map that you can't see on the map itself. So only an atlas would show if there's maybe a big city, maybe within 20, 30 miles of the Ordnance Survey map you're looking at. And you want to start using that other evidence. There might be a port, there might be an airport, there might be a mountainous area. It's impossible for you to know that from the Ordnance Survey map itself because it only covers a small area, but your atlas would start revealing the wider area. And there might be some additional marks to be picked up from using atlas evidence. Okay. Now, the other questions, these are largely impossible to predict. These questions are to do with using your map skills, and the context that you're asked on these supplementary questions will largely relate to the actual question you've been proposed. In this case, this question was all about downstream flooding on settlements and visitor centres and nature reserves. So these supplementary questions were relating to that particular skill. So for example, here we look at analyze different impacts of flooding on each of your chosen land uses. Now, that would depend on what land uses you are selecting that lie in an area on your map. And then you'd have to then use your knowledge about how flooding might impact on those land uses. That's a knowledge and understanding question relating to some material you picked up from a map. So it's quite difficult to prepare for these, but what's key is map evidence is always going to be valued and atlas evidence will always be valued. and you must keep your answer within the context of what you see in these two boxes. These are the information boxes that you're given that guide you. Don't be afraid to use your own knowledge and understanding where appropriate, and always use map evidence in the form of grid references to support points you're making. The more detailed your explanation can be, and I say the word explanation, not description, then the more likely you are to pick up marks and supplementary marks for points that you make. It's definitely worthwhile going online and having a look at some of the SQA past paper questions that relate to this and practicing them, along with having no doubt practiced a number of these in class.